hope you're doing great today, and I thought that we could go over today the last 5, which is the 5 of Wands. Once again, let me just say before we begin, the tarot, in my opinion, is a very unique, personal thing, and everyone is likely to have different definitions for different cards and different definitions for the same cards and all these things. And so what I'm just saying is that I'm happy to try to provide some ideas and stuff for the tarot because I really like tarot, but also I just want to say that my definitions are also unique to me, and they might not work for you because of that reason, because your definitions will also be unique. On the other hand, I find it always helpful to hear new definitions if they work, because then I can just expand on what that card means, and then my reading becomes more enriched. That being said, I hope that you take what's helpful and leave what's not helpful, and that we just can share some ideas with each other. And I just encourage you to take your own definitions and trust yourself and what works for you. Let's get into reading the 5 of Wands. So again, we're going to look at the Rider-Waite because it's the most common tarot card for people usually to start reading with, and also for a lot of decks that have been made more recently. A lot of times they're based off of the Rider-Waite's 5 of Wands and just the Rider-Waite deck in general. And so we're going to look at this now, and the first thing we're going to do is just kind of note what we see here in this card. And so what I see here is the blue sky, kind of green, outdoorsy ground, and 5 people with wands or sticks fighting each other, combating. If you look really close, you notice that there's kind of a sense of woe on some of their faces. Like, look at this fellow right here. Like, it's a very woeful expression. This guy looks like he's having a good time, but these 2 guys look pretty tense and like they're really into this. Personally, they're like really going at this sword fighting thing. And this guy, we can't really see his face, but he has a really cool polka dot frock on. Probably the best outfit out of all of them here. If you notice, as we look at this card, there is tension. My eyes twitching. There is tension in this card, as with many of the 5 cards, if you'll notice. But at the same time, it's kind of a different vibe or feeling than a lot of the other cards. This card just seems more upbeat and like less ominous. It seems tense, but like a sporting tense, like, oh gosh, like, oh, who's gonna win this sporting game? It's a tense game. Everyone's really going for it. I don't know, I don't really know much about sports, but that's kind of what's coming to mind. What you'll notice is that there's this element of competition, tension, between the wands. The wands often to me represent like communication, and so there might be tension and like this element of combativeness in communication, and So I think that's what often this card means for me. My personal experience with this card is I actually would get this card a lot before I would go to a certain class. And this class actually challenged a lot of my previous mindsets and beliefs about the world. And so looking back on that instance, I realized or believe that this card was telling me that not only maybe were there like a possibility of debate between people in the class, likely not between me and other people because I'm not the biggest debater, open debater, but so not only could that element be around where maybe there's people debating, that's a possibility, but actually what I found for me was that this card meant people are going to be communicating ideas to you, and these ideas are going to compete within you. And so it's like, may the best idea win. And so I feel like that's what this card meant, is like through communication, the ideas and theories within me were going to debate and compete for which one would survive and which one would be the best. So that's my take on this card, that it could mean internal debate, external debate, but it's some sort of tension that's brought through communication. I feel like that's what the Five of Wands means. And also can be uncomfortable, I think, this card, because if you look at them, they're sword fighting with sticks. And I don't know about you, but if you've ever sword fought with sticks, it's actually very intense and a little unnerving, just because it's like, oh god, I don't want my thumb to be smashed. And so I think that there can be kind of that element of tension and like standoffishness and fear with this card. So I feel like this card maybe asks us to be careful around open-mindedness. Like, I feel like this card tells me that's important to be open-minded and a good listener, because it can hurt and it can kind of be scary to have ideas and so forth be proven wrong or challenged. And that can be really uncomfortable. But despite that discomfort, it's important, I think, to keep an open mind and just really listen and understand my own ideas and other people's ideas, and find some balance between those, or like realize what I do want to keep and what I don't want to keep as far as ideas and so forth. So I feel like that's the majority of the Five of Wands. The Five of Wands for me is about tension being brought by communication. And that tension can really be internal or external, but for me, mostly has been internal. On the other hand, it also can mean this challenging of old ideas and these challenging of old beliefs and systems, which are communicated to us. That's why, in the end, I think this card asked me to keep an open mind and listen despite that tension. That was the whole thing in a nutshell. That being said, let's just, because this is the last 5 card, official 5 card, there's one more 5 card we're gonna go over, but it's not in the minor arcana. And so, as far as official 5 cards go, you'll notice this theme with fives. And so a lot of people incorporate numerology in the tarot readings. I don't really, but I just am like, I don't know, I guess trying to pay attention to number themes as well. Like, even though I'm not like memorizing traditional numerology meanings and stuff and associating those with the cards, I still pay attention to how cards might correlate with the number that they're given. The fives are a bit more tense, I think, than some of the other card numbers, just as a general rule. Now, I think that there's other cards that are more intense than, the five of that suit. But at the same time, I feel like there's just general tension with the five cards. And I think that's because if you think of a story, you have the beginning and then the growing climax to the top of the plot, and then the descending until the conclusion and the ending of the story. I feel like the five cards are that middle climax, in the story. And so when we walk into that story, there's really a lot of things going on, maybe a lot of tension going on, and all the problems of the story are really coming out, and also are not coming to the point yet where things are being resolved. And so I think that the fives are kind of in that area where it's like we're just walking into the middle of the story, and yes, all the problems are coming out, and maybe that's why they're so tense, that this is really where we begin to see some of the main issues and themes coming up for the story of that, suit, or the story of whatever you're reading for. It's not like there's a complete rule to this kind of pattern for stories, but I think that's just a general kind of idea that I think kind of applies here. But also, I'm not saying that I think that, the Three of Swords isn't less intense than the Five of Swords, for instance. So I think that it really depends on the cards we're comparing and stuff like that. And so I think, as I'm saying this, for me, it's just a general rule. It's not an absolute rule. No rules are absolute rules, right? And it doesn't always apply. So I'm not saying that the fives are the most tense cards. I'm just saying that in general, I think that they tend to be a little tense. Like the Three of Wands and Three of Swords are very different. Like, I think that the Three of Wands aren't very tense, and yet the Three of Swords are. It probably depends on how you read those cards and the scenario in which one is reading them. But at the same time, I think that just the general feeling of that card, Three of Wands doesn't usually tend to be like, wow, there's a lot going on here. Like, these people are fighting. Like, no, it's actually just one person, like, holding three sticks. Okay. Anyways, that being said, that might not apply to you, or it might, but I just think it might be helpful, for me and maybe for you as well, I don't know, to pay attention to the numbers of the cards and just see if there's any themes, just playing around and being curious, seeing what we can find here. That's the last Minor Arcana 5 card, the Five of Wands. Congratulations, you made it to the ending of the fives for the Minor Arcana, and I hope you enjoyed this thing that I just did, and I hope that you found it helpful, or if you didn't find it helpful, that you did something helpful, I guess, while you were watching this for yourself, and that you find answers somewhere inside or outside yourself if it didn't answer your questions. I'm going to welcome you, extend my hand, and welcome you to liking or subscribing, but only if you want to. And thank you for watching. I hope you have a beautiful day. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a nice day. Yeah, okay.